I'm interested to taste this whiskey. I'm excited, a little nervous, worried that it might be a little too powerful, a little too invasive. But that being said, let's figure it out. Good evening and welcome to a Wee Dram edition deep in the British Columbia summer, experiencing a bit of a heat wave, and that's a rare thing for this part of the world. We're gonna have the Bruichladdich, the classic Laddie. It was something that was pretty good value, maybe $80 to $85 Canadian. Something that came off the shelf and was attractive because it's an Islay whiskey, but my memory of it wasn't that I was particularly excited about. It's really important in this experiment, in this whiskey project, the Wee Dram, that you return to whiskeys to try to understand exactly where that whiskey might fit into the great puzzle of Scotland single malt whiskeys. So tonight we're gonna take on the teal. I mean, it really stands out. A teal whiskey is something that runs very different. You expect the coppers and the golds and the silvers and all the trim and the blues and the royal this and that, and then these guys come at you with a San Jose Sharks, 1991 jersey. Apparently it has some tie-in with a color that can be seen from the Bruichladdich Pure at a certain time of day, so who knows. Anyway, let's head on over to the fireplace and we're gonna take this baby on. So here we are looking at the Michael Jackson Scotland and its whiskies, and it shows the operating and the closed distilleries. And I believe Bruichladdich was actually mothballed when this book was produced. Let's turn our attention to the cylinder. So it's difficult to get over the teal explosion that's going on right now. If you can look through it, it's a beautiful tin, established 1881, non-chilled filter, thank you, coloring free at 50% alcohol by volume. So they're proud of those three things, and so they should be. So immediately you give it a big up. I like this little quote here. Once again, land and dram united. That's a nice little thing. It's a nice casing for the whiskey that we're gonna find inside. So let's lift. And we notice a silver top. Oh. Continuing on with the teal bottle, which is distracting because what I want to see is the whiskey right now. I don't want to see more teal. We had plenty of teal. We have no age statement, and again we have many of the same graphic qualities as we see on the cylinder. Off comes, and I like it when these are very simple and very straightforward as to how they should be done, as they can be a real pain in the butt in some bottles. Lifts off nicely, thank you. And let's test this cork. This is always interesting. Not very good, but not a bad smell coming off of it. A weak cork is never encouraging. Well, let's see what this whiskey is going to look like in the glass. So taking a look at this whiskey up in the fading light, the color itself is pale, but has a nice, and again, it could be the evening light where we're picking up a little bit of gold and a little bit of copper. You can really see some leg in this whiskey. I am seeing quite a bit of oil and viscosity hanging in the glass. So let's take it to the nose. So I want to be a little bit careful because of the strength of this whiskey. I don't want to fry out the nostrils immediately. So there is sort of a dangerous burn that kind of warns you off immediately. But under that is a really, maybe a melon almost, a kind of a honey melon, but it's not together. There's two things happening. One is the burn, and the next is the delay of the sweetness in this fruity melon that sits underneath. Maybe a whiff of smoke at best, but notably unpeated. But on Islay, you expect certain qualities like the seaweed and the medicinal smoke And this whiskey doesn't provide that. I'm interested to taste this whiskey. I'm excited, a little nervous, worried that it might be a little too powerful, a little too invasive. But that being said, let's figure it out. Wow, very powerful. Mouthfeel is very pleasant, which is an interesting contrast to the intense energy. It's not flavor, it's just a strength raging at the end and through. As you move the whiskey on your tongue, it releases sort of explosions of energy and strength. But if you just hold the whiskey softly as you sip it at the very beginning and just hold it, it's actually quite gentle and quite pleasant. So I'll just take a very small sip this time. It works very well. You can manage it much better. Kind of a buttery texture in the mouth, which is one of the most pleasant characteristics jumping out at me. As I take a second sip, there's obviously my mouth is adjusting to the intensity and the strength, and there's less of a burn. As it finishes, you can taste the oak, sort of a sharp oak flavor jumping up, and then again there's a lot of intensity and finish, but not a complex finish, just a heavy thing, and then it kind of eases off. This would be a whiskey that I would explore maybe using a little bit of water with. So it doesn't blow me away in terms of the way it tastes, but it does impress me with its strength and sort of youthful vigor. Definitely worth experiencing, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So if you had to boil it down and you really had to get into the nitty-gritty and you had to decide what this whiskey would be worth and whether or not you would want this whiskey on your bar at all times, I think you could probably do without. I would be interested to explore Bruichladdich age statement whiskeys, and I would be really interested to try the peated expressions. Certainly not discouraging, certainly glad that I had a chance to try it, but not a whiskey that I need to have on my bar year in and year out. A beautiful evening, a chance to enjoy the outdoors, a chance to enjoy the warm July air at a late hour. Summertime is sweet in British Columbia when it all comes together, and I'm very happy to be enjoying a Wee Dram this evening. Cheers. Salan Shava. Youthful, intense San Jose Sharks.